Hey everyone, how you doing today in Final Cut Pro land out there? Out there on the good old internet, it provides us the opportunity to talk to everybody live. And we are going to talk about WWDC, which is happening Monday, right? Is it Monday? I think it is. Let me just check something here. Yes, it is. I'm going to make sure my audio is coming through. It is indeed. Everything sounds good. Sounds good out there. So I figured I'd come on here today and talk about the possibilities. These are not really predictions. Let's just discuss what's going on for WWDC. We're going to visit a few WWDCs of the past and what Final Cut Pro related things were introduced at past WWDC. So we have our friend Phil Allen says, sounds good. Thank you very much, Phil. I appreciate it. Spot Lewis says, hello from Philly, good old Philadelphia. What's the weather like up there in Philly? I think today it's 84 degrees. I've been doing yard work around Final Cut Pro Radio HQ, and I get out early in the morning. The other morning I got up and first off, coffee. Okay, first off you do is you get coffee. Then I fed the cats, because if I don't feed them, they'll be at my feet meowing, and I won't be able to get anything else done. And once those two things were done, then I got dressed and went out for a 2-mile walk, which I normally do before the sun comes up. And then when I came back, I washed my car once again before the sun got up. And then I looked at my watch. It was 6:58 a.m. So I did all those things, those 4 things, before 7 o'clock in the morning. 84, okay, and not hot. It's the same here, but it is rather hot. And we got a hello from Denmark. What is Denmark weather like? I think Australia, my friends in Australia, they're in the wintertime, right? They're exactly opposite of what we are on the East Coast, and so we're heading into the summer. I think they're heading into the winter. At least that's my understanding. So we're going to talk about WWDC. WWDC, let me just check. I think it's Monday. Is it Monday? Let's just check here. Start page, WWDC 2022. 4 days away. Yes, Monday, June 6th. Yeah, so it's Monday this year. I think a lot of times in the past it's been on Tuesdays. So this is cool that it's a Monday. I'm glad it's on a Monday because I don't have to wait till Tuesday. Evers Nature Photography says starting summer in Denmark. Absolutely, that's very cool. Just checking on that. So we're going to go over some of the things. So yes, WWDC is the Worldwide Developers Conference. Absolutely. You don't have to tell me that. I know that. However, they've introduced hardware at WWDC. They've more than once. We're going to go over some of the years that they've actually introduced hardware, and then we're going to go over the last 3 WWDCs, 2019, 2020, 2021, and all 3 of those WWDCs, Final Cut Pro was there at WWDC. All 3 of those, 2019, 2020, and 2021, all 3 of those, Final Cut Pro was indeed at WWDC. So the question that I have is, number one, are they going to introduce any Mac hardware this time? It's not released. It's not released at WWDC. I don't think. Maybe occasionally it was. I don't remember. But I know it's been introduced. They've previewed it at WWDC. Evers Nature Photography from Denmark says, funny, Monday is a bank holiday, so no work that day. So you get to watch it live if you want. Of course, I just go to YouTube. That's where I go. Popping in to say hi. Thanks for the updates, Richard. Absolutely, absolutely. No problem there, Roz. Glad to do it. Look, otherwise, there's no Final Cut Pro news this week. I figured I'd jump on here and we'd talk about WWDC. Now, there's been some WWDCs that have been a little disappointing. Last year, for example, there were rumors they were going to introduce the new Apple Silicon 16-inch MacBook Pro. As a matter of fact, it was even in the YouTube, Apple's live stream YouTube keywords. It said Mac Pro, 16-inch Mac Pro or something along those lines. But they didn't introduce it. For whatever reason, they did not introduce it at WWDC. Off topic, but a possible future topic. Have you heard of Audio Design Desk? Absolutely, I've heard of Audio Design Desk, and they're going to be on this live stream next Wednesday. They're going to be on talking about the developer from ADD is going to be on here, and we're going to do some demonstrations and show people what it is, and you can ask questions, and he'll be there. He'll be on here live. So next Wednesday, Audio Design Desk will be on Final Cut TV. We're going to have him on here live. Get your questions ready for him, and we'll do some demonstrations. I saw them at NAB. And I went to the demonstrations there, and it's a fantastic, fantastic application. It is really, really a very, very good application in conjunction with Final Cut Pro. So we will talk to them next Wednesday. It's scheduled, unless something changes. That's what it's scheduled for right now. So let me talk about NAB for a second. NAB was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. 52,000 people, attendees were there at NAB, which is down from 90-some thousand, I think 92,000 from 2019, but that's everywhere. That's everywhere. So I like live events. I like getting together with people and sharing a hamburger or a coffee or going out for a drink or going to dinner or going out for breakfast. I really, really enjoy that. And I'm looking forward to more live events as long as things keep getting better. I went to NAB, 52,000 people were there. I rode the airplane, of course, took an airplane there and back. I came back with nothing, not even a sniffle. Not even a sniffle. So I'm healthy. I appreciate that I'm healthy. I like that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the summit this year, the Final Cut Pro Summit. Future media conferences are hopefully going to put something on there. There's, the last 2 years, of course, it's been virtual, and that's been nice for people who can't make it over to the United States. But the Creative Summit has never been about big numbers of people. It's only been 125 to 150 people who can make it over here and attend in person. Yes, the virtual ones are nice, but there's a couple of things. Number one, you can't have coffee with Steve Martin or Brad Olson or Philip Hodges. You can't go out to dinner with Philip Hodges and Serena Catania. You can't do that virtually. It's not the same. The virtual events have been necessary for the last couple of years, but there's no comparison between a virtual event and an in-person event. No comparison. Virtual events were necessary, but if things continue to get better in the United States, we will get back to live events. So NAB was a success. I think they were expecting 50,000 and they got over 52,000. They have an NAB New York scheduled for the fall, and it depends on what the Creative Summit's doing. So the Creative Summit in the past has been at Cupertino the last three years. In Cupertino, we get to go to Apple campus and get a presentation from the Final Cut Pro team in person. The virtual ones, like I said, that we've had the last couple years, it was necessary because of the situation, but it's no comparison to being in person at the Apple campus. As a matter of fact, the last one, 2019, we were supposed to go to the Spaceship campus, but something happened the last 2 weeks before the summit, and we went to One Infinite Loop instead. But the main idea is we get to see the presentation by the Apple Final Cut Pro team in person. We get to talk to them. They have a separate meeting with us usually on Saturday, a private meeting. We get to ask questions. So that's what I really like, the in-person stuff. no matter what they do, if they do a hybrid, that's fine. They can do a virtual one for people. Obviously, a lot of people can't make it to that. I report live from there, so as much as I possibly can. And if there's another one in Cupertino or whatever they're going to do, I'll be there and I'll be reporting live as much as I can as well. But I'm looking forward to more in-person events. Nathan says, I used ADD Beta for 30 days and just had to buy it. Very cool app. Love what they're done with the audio for video workflow. Absolutely. So they are going to be on Final Cut TV next Wednesday, and you get your questions ready. I think the biggest problem with any Mac is managing the heat issues. Maybe they pulled the 16 because of a heat issue. They certainly could have. They pulled it for some reason because, like I said, Apple had their own keywords for the 16-inch MacBook Pro in their YouTube feed for WWDC last year. Regardless of that, Final Cut Pro was at WWDC last year. Final Cut Pro's been there in 2019, Final Cut Pro's been there in 2020, and Final Cut Pro's been there in 2021 at WWDC. Now, once again, we're just here to have some fun, just to talk about possibilities of Final Cut Pro and maybe some hardware announcements at WWDC. I mean, I'm not a developer, so the hardware announcements and Final Cut Pro announcements, any kind of a demo or whatever, are the biggest things that I look forward to. So this year, so 2 years ago, 2020, Apple announced the transition to Apple Silicon. They said later this year, we're going to introduce our first Apple Silicon machine. It came out, I think, November. The Mac Mini and the MacBook Air, I think. Was it the MacBook Air and the Mac Mini in 2020, November 2020? And they said that will start a 2-year cycle to bring our entire line of Macs over to Apple Silicon. Okay? So that's 2 years. November 2022 will be the end of that 2-year cycle. So here's my thinking. Okay, that means they've already announced back in the spring event that they have one more Mac to bring over. And that one more Mac is the Mac Pro. What have they done with Mac Pros at WWDC in the past? They have shown them at WWDC. They have shown them at WWDC. So here we are, Final Cut TV, of course. Let's go here, Final Cut TV. WWDC 2022. The Power Mac G5 was shown at WWDC 2003. Power Mac G5. Right? It was. I'm telling you, it was. Power Mac G5 in 2003. The 30-inch cinema display was shown at WWDC 2004. The Power Mac, the old cheese grater Power Mac, was shown at WWDC 2006. The 15-inch MacBook Pro, WWDC 2012. The Mac Pro trash can was shown at WWDC 2013. So what we have here is a pattern. When they have a new Mac Pro or the MacBook Pro or the iMac Pro, they always preview them at WWDC, almost always. They didn't do the last year's 16-inch at WWDC, but they did the one before that, the 15-inch. So they preview them at WWDC. I realize it's a developers conference, but that doesn't make any difference. All these hardware announcements were made at WWDC. Let me see. Here we go. So what else was at WWDC? The iMac Pro was announced at WWDC 2017. There's another one. There's another hardware announcement at WWDC. Right? That's right. Let's go to this. Well, let's answer a few questions here. Or comments, I mean. Nathan McAvoy says, recently using my studio monitors again, but M1 Audio stopped supporting my old Firewire 1814 interface. Need a balanced output. Lots of EMI from G drives. Any recommendations on a new one? I have two. I have the Scarlett, which has been fine. I'm broadcasting the Scarlett 2i4 USB. It has 2 channels, but I also have the Apollo Twin X. I'm not sure what I'd get if I was buying brand new now, but the Scarlett's been pretty reliable. It's a couple $100. One of the things I like about the Scarlett when I'm interviewing people, that I got the older version, not the latest one, because there's a blend dial that I can, when I have guests on and I have an earpiece in, I can blend my audio with the USB audio from my guest. And I can balance that physically myself. So I can balance my audio in my earpiece with how much I can hear my guest. That was a very important feature that they eliminated on a recent one. So I went back one generation and I have that for that specific reason. We're all looking for 10.7. So I posted that in the graphic. I posted 10.7. I think, but I don't think they're going to announce 10.7. I would be shocked if they announced 10.7 at WWDC. A new version of Final Cut? Yes. They've shown us new versions of Final Cut at WWDC before. I'd be really shocked if they said this is Final Cut Pro 10.7 coming out later this year. I think they might say this is a version of Final Cut coming out later this year. When the new Mac Pro is announced, no, when the new Mac Pro comes out in the fall at the Apple event, they will show Final Cut Pro 10.7 at that point. They might show, I have a feeling they're going to show Final Cut Pro again at WWDC like they have in the past. I've shown you the hardware that they've announced at WWDC. I think absolutely 10.7 is coming out in the fall. I'd be really pleasantly surprised if they actually said this is Final Cut Pro 10.7 at WWDC. I think they might show us a new version of Final Cut, say this is a new version of Final Cut coming out later this year, but I don't think they're going to name it 10.7. I think it's too early for that. I put it in a graphic. It's okay. What that was just we're going to see a version of Final Cut on the screen. Really wish they would bring out a new Mac Mini. They absolutely will. They will. They'll have the M2 Mac Mini. I would say maybe this fall at the Apple event. They might show it at WWDC as well. Hello from India. How are you doing? Glad to have you. Glad to have everybody here. So let's look at this. Let me pull this up. This is just a little clip I pulled. This is, you'll see WWDC 2019. Look at the Mac, look at Final Cut Pro on the screen. This is Final Cut Pro at WWDC.
Now we've also done something really special for video editing.
So that is WWDC and 2019, and here's another one.
Never been seen before on any video editing software on any computer.
WWDC 2019. So there's 2019 Final Cut Pro at WWDC. That was 2019. So what did they do in 2020? Let's find out. Here's WWDC 2020.
Let's turn to one of our most sophisticated apps, Final Cut Pro. Here it is running on Apple Silicon for the first time.
So in 2020, once again, Final Cut Pro at WWDC, here it is running for the first time on Apple Silicon. So that's 2019 Final Cut Pro, 2020 Final Cut Pro. What about 2021? Well, I think there was a problem with 2021 because they didn't introduce the 16-inch MacBook Pro like people expected, and Apple had the keywords for it in their YouTube live feed as well. So somebody at Apple thought it was going to be there for the event, but for some reason, whatever reason, it got pulled, at the last minute. But they still showed Final Cut Pro. They still showed Final Cut Pro in 2021, sorry. Here's Final Cut Pro. Let me pull myself out of the way there. You can see Final Cut Pro. You can see it over there, all the way over to the left. This is 2021 WWDC. There is Final Cut Pro for the third year. Third WWDC in a row.
And drop it in to Final Cut.
So that's 2019 Final Cut Pro, 2020 Final Cut Pro, and 2021 Final Cut Pro. WWDC's Final Cut Pro's been at all three of those events. Why wouldn't they have it at 2022? Especially if they preview the new M2, I'm calling it here M2 Mac Pro, showing us what's coming out later this year. That's why I say it's going to be the M2. Why would you bring out a Mac Pro with an M1 chip? The M1 chip's going to be 2 years old in the fall when the Mac Pro comes out. It doesn't make any sense to introduce a brand new Mac Pro with an M1 chip that's 2 years old. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I think it's going to be the M2 chip, whatever the heck that is, whatever the form the Mac Pro is going to take this fall. I don't have any idea. I hope it's something big and beefy. And I might get one. I have a 2019 Mac Pro, and I have a 2021 MacBook Pro. So I think they're going to show, I'm pretty sure that Final Cut Pro 10.7 is coming out in the fall with the Mac Pro. Now, the question is, as long as things are going as they expect, will they show the Mac Pro at WWDC? I think that they will. I absolutely think that they will. Nathan says he's heard good things about the Scarlett. So I've bought two Scarletts for that's my main interface. I'm talking through an Apollo Twin X going into the Scarlett right now, but I like the Scarlett, and it's only a few $100, whatever. They have different versions of them. I have the 2i4. And you can run speakers off of it, or in headphones. It has headphone amps. Speaking of headphones, I really, really like these headphones. I got these DT77 Pro. They're the high impedance ones, the 250 ohm ones. But I went online looking for a set of flat frequency response headphones, accurate headphones. These things are comfortable, and they're very, very flat. The interesting thing is the MacBook Pro will power the high impedance headphones now. Specifically, they came out and said it's actually switches. When you plug high impedance headphones into the Mac Pro, it actually switches the impedance matching. Pretty smart. But anyway, high impedance headphones are typically used in recording studios. But I really, really like those a lot. DT77 Pros is what they are. I have 2 pair of Sony 7506s, but they have a harsh upper mid-range sound to my ear. They have a harsh upper 2.5K, 3K. It's too pronounced, and when I judge things, I can't judge them with the 7506s. So I just want a master out volume knob for the monitors. They have a big one. You have a big one. Let me see if I don't know if I can show you mine or not. Well, let me see something here. Let me see what I've got. I'm not sure if I can show you this or not. Let me see. That's the knob on my Scarlett. I had to move my laptop out of the way to pull that up. It's got a nice big physical knob. Nice. Still using my old AKG K40s. Yeah, the high impedance on this MacBook Pro is cool. The AKGs are only 55 ohms, so I haven't gotten to test that out yet. Focusrite has new Vocaster 1 and Vocaster 2 products. There you go. Spot Lewis says FCP on the new iPad. I don't think so. I know I tease that all the time, but I don't think we're going to see Final Cut Pro on the iPad. I don't know, listen. The iPad's not going to be as powerful as the Mac Studio, as my MacBook Pro, as the new Mac Pro. It's going to be down in power from that. As a convenience of doing some rough cut editing and then transferring it over to the Final Cut Pro, yeah, I can see that. But you already have iMovie that does that, and you have LumaFusion, which is a really, really cool iPad NLE that you can transfer to Final Cut. Apple has featured them multiple times. So at some point, I think LumaFusion even said themselves they wouldn't be surprised to see Final Cut on the iPad. But I have questions for you. I got a 56 terabyte RAID 5 Thunderbolt 4 RAID 5 connected to my MacBook Pro. How in the world am I going to connect that to an iPad? I have thousands of third-party plugins for Final Cut Pro. How in the world am I going to access those plugins on an iPad? A lot of problems. I mean, they might do a light version of Final Cut Pro, but you're not going to connect 56 terabyte RAID to it, and you're not going to connect all those plugins. They don't run on an iPad, on iOS. They run on macOS. So there's a lot of issues to overcome before. Can it happen? Of course it can happen. Apple can do whatever they want. I'm sure they're working on a version, but I'd rather them concentrate on Final Cut Pro for the Mac, as we all would. I mean, I would definitely would. Right? Yes, that's what we would want. So there we go. iMac Pro WWDC 2017, the Mac Pro WWDC 2019, and Apple Silicon WWDC 2020. So if we indeed see the Mac Pro coming in at WWDC, I mean, they're not going to release it. They're not going to release it till the fall, but previewing it, it's a perfect time. They have millions and millions of people watching Apple at that point. So to preview it at WWDC is not uncommon. It's not unprecedented. As a matter of fact, it's expected. The G5, the original cheese grater, the iMac Pro, the circular Mac Pro were all introduced at WWDC. The 2019 Mac Pro was introduced at 2019 at WWDC. So Philip Allen says, would they ever kill iMovie and call it Final Cut Pro 1? No. iMovie is too popular. iMovie is for the average consumer. iMovie is a really, really good name. iMovie is a better name than Final Cut Pro as far as the consumer is concerned. But, or Final Cut Free, yeah, they could introduce it. Maybe if you have Final Cut Pro, you get the app for free, or they just a separate purchase. But I think it'll get there eventually. I don't think it's going to come there this year necessarily. Current 2022 Apple Dream announcement: buy Audio Design Desk, Apple eyes it, the interface, and implement it to Final Cut Pro. Boy, that's a lot of work. That Audio Design Desk, we're going to have the guys from Audio Design Desk on Final Cut TV next Wednesday. They're coming in. That thing is very sophisticated application. I don't know if I'd want it combined into Final Cut. It would be too much in there, I think. I like it as a separate app. It's a very sophisticated app. And the Final Cut Pro team and ADD work together. Do you have a quick tip on transferring LumaFusion to Final Cut Pro? I'm very new to LumaFusion. Is there a share to Final Cut Pro? There absolutely is a share to Final Cut Pro. It's an add-on feature. I forget how much it is. But yes, there's an add-on feature. You have to pay for it to export from Final Cut to LumaFusion. If it's too much for you, it might be $19. I'm not sure. You can wait till it goes on sale. It goes on sale typically a couple times every year, but there's absolutely an export from LumaFusion to Final Cut. Why would you work on an iPad with Final Cut Pro? I need big speakers, monitors, gradering monitor, etc. Yes, the issue is I think people that they want to do quick cuts on the iPad. Do quick cuts, and then when they get back in the office, transfer that to the bigger machines. Although some people will edit their entire projects on an iPad. I'm not sure with the sophistication of LumaFusion, which is fantastic application. It's $30, $29. They haven't ever charged an additional price increase for that. If you bought it once, you get all the updates for free. They're at version 3 something. I highly recommend LumaFusion on the iPad. $30. It's cheap. It's very inexpensive. It's a very sophisticated app. There's lots of tutorials on it. They're very good people. They've been on this show multiple times. But I understand working on an iPad. As a matter of fact, I recently was transferring a clip from my phone to my Mac to edit in Final Cut Pro. I wanted a short clip, and I said, "The heck with that." I did the clip in LumaFusion and exported just the clip that I wanted, and it worked fantastic. I edited on my iPhone with LumaFusion a little clip. It's very, very doable. It's very doable. I was curious about it, But now, no, if I need a clip from my iPhone, just a clip, part of a clip, I'm using LumaFusion, exporting that to my Mac instead of the whole clip if I don't want it. You can export Final FCP XML from LumaFusion, absolutely. Can't wait. I saw him over on Focus On, great interview. Well, we're going to have him here, and we're specifically, you know, Final Cut Pro related, and I'm very sophisticated, you know, I'm very good with Logic, so we're going to ask him some questions with Final Cut Pro, not some generic questions. If you have questions, get them. We'll be on for an hour or so, and we'll do the demo, and we'll also talk to him about it specifically. Totally appreciate your expertise. And Roz, I appreciate you stopping in and coming to these live events. Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to see what happens with the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Our friends, Future Media Concepts, are of course doing those. But one of the curious things, so this has come up. People are asking about this because about Final Cut Pro on the iPad because of articles like this. Apple plans to make the iPad more like a laptop and less like a phone. That's very cool. Yes, that's very cool. But it already is. It already has a keyboard. It already has a pencil. You can use a keyboard and a trackpad. So we'll have to see how that works. Just because they're making the iPad more like a laptop doesn't necessarily mean, it doesn't mean one way or the other, whether they include Final Cut Pro ported over to the iPad. At some point, it's probably going to happen. I mean, it's very likely will happen, but there's a lot of things that I need before I'll edit on the iPad. I mean, I bring my MacBook Pro. I brought it to NAB. I have software that doesn't run on the iPad. The software that I'm using right now, for example, does not run on the iPad. Now, if it does, I like the MacBook Pro quite a bit. So this is the software that I'm using. Let me just pull this up here. This is the software that I'm using. This is the screen that I have, the real estate that I have. I need all these palettes. If you can see right below me here is my audio levels that I keep track of. Let me get my hands. My hands are backwards. Nope, this one. Right here below me is my audio levels, so I can keep track of audio. Sometimes that's muted and I don't know about it. But I like having all this real estate, especially if I'm working on a project. Now, working on an iPad, I use LumaFusion now. It's fine. It works really well. And I really like the pencil. I really like taking the Apple Pencil and using that. But this is the screen real estate that I have right now. This can't fit on an iPad. So for the most part, I'm going to stick with my MacBook Pro or my Mac Pro if I get the Mac Pro. I don't need a Mac right now. The MacBook Pro that I have is fantastic. I really, really like the Mac Pro. So I don't need it. I don't need it. Are we? Pencil. Oh, there we are. Okay. Now let me just. So I like the Mac Pro quite a bit. So this is. Let me just do this. Yeah. Let me just pull this up. So right now I'm monitoring the Mac Pro, my MacBook Pro, and I have three screens. My MacBook Pro screen, my main 34-inch LG monitor, and I have another monitor to the side. So I'm just pulling up a couple of comments. Yes, I'm excited to have him in a Final Cut Pro specific environment? Yeah, absolutely. And we will absolutely make sure to ask the guys at ADD about DAW Bridge. It is an upcoming feature. Absolutely, I will. That is an upcoming feature, and what that does is just, you don't have all the sound things. It just links up a DAW with Final Cut. Now, when I had a private session Zoom meeting with them before this was released, right when it was about to be released back in April or so, and when they showed me how it links up with Logic, it links up the playheads, Final Cut Pro playhead with the Logic playhead. And I said to them, I said, now tell me something. The Logic playhead scrolls in place. The playhead's stationary and everything, the waveforms scroll underneath the playhead. What happens with Final Cut Pro when you link up Logic's scrolling playhead with Final Cut Pro, because Final Cut Pro playhead scrolls off the screen? It goes completely off the screen and you don't know where it is. So we tried it into demo. Maybe we'll show it again next week. What happens is when they're linked up with Logic Pro and Logic Pro is set to scroll in place, Final Cut Pro's playhead does not go off the screen. What it does, it goes from the middle to the end and then jumps back to the middle again. It keeps doing that, jumping back to the middle. So effectively, when those two are linked up, Final Cut Pro's playhead stays on screen. It's like half paging. Normal paging, it goes all the way back to the other side and then goes to the end and then goes back to the other side. But Final Cut Pro just goes to the middle and then goes to the end. Goes to the middle, goes to the end. So that was interesting. It actually forces Final Cut Pro's playhead to remain on screen. Yes, Roz, very exciting. They have stuff coming, absolutely. Yeah, the ad bridge is very cool. I'm about to use it on a feature length we're working on, looking forward to really putting it to the test. That's what they want. They want you to really to put it to the test. So I have a copy of that, and I use it for, I use it for linking to Logic, of course, but I also use it. The sound effects the library they have is incredible. The Foley effects and all the other effects, it's absolutely stunning what they've done. They did a great job. They'll be on next Wednesday on Final Cut TV. We're going to drill them about Final Cut Pro, but they're already there. These guys are really sophisticated. They have a sophisticated app, audio design desk. And we will have them on next Wednesday, and we'll come on and just, have our normal conversation with them. And we'll do some demonstrations and see what else we can come up with. You guys come on back on and ask them questions about things, and we'll demonstrate the bridge, because I think that's going to be a popular way for people to get involved with Audio Design Desk. What do you think? So let's get back to WWDC. Do you think we're going to see Final Cut Pro? Yes, we are going to see Final Cut Pro. Of course, that's my opinion. Are we going to see a preview of the Mac Pro? I'd say there's a very, very good chance that we're going to see a preview of the new Mac Pro. I'm calling it the M2 Mac Pro. I'm not saying the M1 Mac Pro. It doesn't make any sense to come out. M1's going to be 2 years old this fall. Two years old. So let's see what's going on. Yes, and they keep adding more. I love it. The new update links to its stock sites too. Yes, absolutely. It's a very sophisticated application. If you haven't used it for audio, then I think there's a trial. I know there's a trial. You can download it in trial mode. Final Cut Pro 11. You think that we're done with Final Cut Pro 10? I hope not. I hope there's more features coming. Now look, so here's my prediction. 10.7 is coming out in the fall at the Apple event when they introduce the Mac Pro, maybe a new M2 Mac Mini, maybe a new M2 Mac Air. I don't think we're going to see a new, I'd be shocked if they introduced a new 16-inch MacBook Pro this fall, because that would be only 1 year between the 16-inch MacBook Pro's updates. Normally it's 18 months to 2 years. So at the earliest, I would think that the MacBook Pro is going to get the M2 chip. It would be next spring, because they introduced a new spring event when they introduced the Mac Studio this year. So next spring would be the earliest, but I'm going to say probably next fall, a year from now, over a year from now, for any update to the 2016 MacBook Pro. That's most likely the new Mac that I would get. I don't need a new Mac right now because the one I have is fantastic. My Mac 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro is completely great. I took it to NAB. I did all my streaming. I did everything I needed to do with it. I brought it back here. It's lightweight. Doesn't too bad. The rumors are about colors on the upcoming units. Do you mean colors on iMacs? I'm not sure what you mean. Nathan says, LOL. Colors on the upcoming units. Which units are you referring to there, Philip? All right. You know what's hard when I'm in here doing this thing? I can smell my dinner cooking, and it smells really good out there. So Tyler says, only problem with Dawbridge is you can't get the project data within Final Cut Pro within Logic to Final Cut Pro. You have to export a mix down in Logic, get it from. Okay, then I think the idea of the idea at this point is just linking these two together, the physical part. I don't know. Yeah, the XML. I read somewhere recently that somebody said mistakenly that Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro share the same code base. No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't share the same code base at all. That's completely inaccurate. I think what he meant was that Final Cut Pro uses some plugins from Logic. Using plugins, audio unit plugins, and sharing the same code base are completely different things. The Final Cut Pro code base and Logic code base are not the same. Oh, Philip's saying MacBook Air or others. I say color MacBook Airs. Look at the colors on the promo page. There you go. That makes complete sense. So let me see what else we have here. I think we're just about, let me just check on one thing. I'm going to check on this. There we go. So I'm excited. Monday, WWDC. I always sit back and watch WWDC on the big screen. I have a big 50-some inch screen, and I watch it live there. Then I come back, and watch it over the replay a couple times. So what do you think? The fact that we had a response from Apple on a response from Apple about the letter that was written to them about Final Cut Pro and professionals and Hollywood and stuff. Is that going to have any effect at Final Cut Pro and WWDC? Don't know. What do you think? You think it's possible? Of course it's possible. Let me just pull this up. Video, phone. Here we go. Also, I have a new Final Cut Pro radio out. It just came out. This is, people like audio podcasts. So this version of my podcast, Final Cut Pro Radio 126, just came out. This is 7 years I've been podcasting Final Cut Pro Radio, and I'm working towards 1.3 million podcast downloads at this point. For the last 8 years, something like that. But anyway, FCPradio.com, they have this really cool new feature where all the episodes are right here available. You can just click on any one and listen to it right in the window. This is, my podcasts are, look at all these people I've had over there. Let me just pull this up. Mark, let me just pull this up. These people are a lot of people. So we have the Aussies from Final Cut Pro, year 7, Sam Messman, Jeffrey Orthwine, Wes Plate, formerly from Apple. We had Mark Bach, LA colorist, Brad Olson, of course, Ian Anderson, Chris Mertens we've had on here, Serena Catania, Chris Fenwick, Stephen Moyer, LumaTouch, Terry and Chris from LumaTouch, LumaFusion, Chris Hawking, Final Cut Pro 2019 Creative Summit. All kinds of good people on here. Final Cut Pro Radio, year 7, 1.3 million downloads. It's very popular. Love the voice isolation that came in 10.6.2. I want to see that other ML features they have up their sleeves. Absolutely. Here's my requests. I'd like to see that voice isolation feature ported over to Logic. Because right now, that voice isolation is so good that if I need it, I'll open the audio clip in Final Cut Pro, apply the voice isolation, and then export that new clip over for editing in Logic Pro. Do you think they will add a designated mixer in Final Cut Pro, or just add tighter integration with Logic? I don't see the tighter integration with Logic. I think they will absolutely have a mixer in Final Cut Pro. I think it's already there. I'm pretty sure it's already there. They haven't released it yet. A roles-based mixer, whatever they're doing. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's already there. Roberts says, I've been listening to you since episode 1. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I've had a good time. I really like Final Cut Pro. Yeah, that would be great. No, I think there is a mixer in Final Cut Pro. I think there's features in Final Cut Pro they've been working on for a while, and they're honing them to see how things go, see how the hardware works, see how complaints are. Look how fast they turned around 10.6.2. Introduced the transition bug, where you couldn't drag a transition to a connected clip. It used to be, well, it's back again, where you could drag a transition to a connected clip and it would put 2 transitions on each end and place it in a secondary storyline. Well, that was broken in 10.6.2. They turned right around and got us 10.6.3 in about a month, and it fixed that problem. So that's that. So what do you think? We saw Final Cut Pro at 2019. We saw Final Cut Pro at WWDC in 2020. We saw Final Cut Pro at WWDC in 2021. Very likely going to see Final Cut Pro again in 2022. Monday. I'm excited. 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time. So do you have any other... One of the other odd things about that I've seen, let me pull that up, that I've seen mentioned about WWDC, we saw about the iPad, but one of the other odd things that I thought that's kind of interesting, I would like to see it myself, is they're talking about Apple doing a search engine. That's one of the things they're talking about. Let me pull that up there. That would be very interesting. So Philip says, I'm ready for Monday for sure. I am too. Robert says his Mac Studio arrives Monday. Big Apple Day. That's fantastic. You know, I saw one of those. I was talking to Sam Messman over there at NAB. He was at the OWC booth, and the Mac Studio is bigger than I thought it was. That's the first time I've seen one physically in person, and it's bigger than I thought. I don't know why I thought it was more compact, but it was actually a big, it's like a solid piece of Mac horsepower. It's bigger than I thought. So one of the things that let me just pull this up. I'm going to go there. I was kind of surprised about was, let me just pull this up here. One of the things that I was surprised about, and I'm not sure how accurate it is, what's going on there. Just pull that up there. Is Apple getting into the search engine. I said, what the heck is that about? I mean, I would like to see that myself. But I'm not sure. Let me just pull this up. I'm not sure. Let me pull this down here. Hold on one second, please. I'm not sure how that would, last year they had, one of the things that they had was, let me shoot this over there, publish. So Apple getting into the search field would be interesting, because last year, I think Google paid them $15 billion to be the default search engine on Apple devices. $15 billion. So if Apple indeed does do a search, it would obviously affect the Google stock price. And Apple would no longer get that $15 billion payment from Google to be the default search engine. So I'm not sure about that, but it would be certainly interesting. Apple's been talking about it for a while. Wouldn't doubt it with their focus on privacy, and would save them a huge check going to Google that they cut every year to make them the default search engine. No, Google pays Apple to be the search engine. $15 billion, I think it was last year. So Google pays, in other words, Apple has billions with a B, iPhones, iPads, Macs, all over the place. And in order for Google to be the search engine, the default search engine, they pay Apple $15 billion last year. It's a nice chunk of change. So, but anyway, there must be more in it. We'll have to see if that comes to WWDC, if they indeed do that. So now the other thing is they're going to announce a new operating system. They're going to announce a new iOS system. And who knows what that's going to do for Final Cut Pro. Add more features, maybe. Maybe it will. Have to see. So, all right, everyone. I think we're going to head out of here. Let's do one more thing here. Let's go. Cat room. What are those cats doing? They're sleeping in air conditioning. Look at the one peeking up at me. So I'm excited for WWDC. Next Wednesday, like I said, we're going to have the guys from Audio Design Desk on. They'll be on. We'll come on back and we'll talk to them, and you ask them questions, any questions that you like. And WWDC on Monday. I'm sure there'll be some exciting news one way or the other. I think we'll see Final Cut Pro for the fourth WWDC in a row. I don't remember what 2018. I didn't check into 2018 if Final Cut Pro was at WWDC or not. Don't know. Anyway, everyone, I think I'm going to head out. If you have any more questions, go ahead and shout them out. By the way, you can always go to the YouTube page, and you can continue to comment on this live stream, on the video, after it's no longer live. You can comment there. I have comments that come in every once in a while going forward. Great info as usual. Thanks. I'll be listening for you after Monday's WWDC. You know I'll be back. Final Cut TV will be back. We'll do one right after WWDC. That's what we typically do. I wanted to do this one before WWDC to, get a chance to talk about stuff. That's what I like to do. I like to give the community, the Final Cut Pro community, chance to come on and talk and comment about Final Cut Pro. That's why I do these. All right, everyone. Everybody will be watching WWDC live. Everybody will be. And I'll see you next week. Once or twice, maybe Monday after the WWDC, but certainly on Wednesday with Audio Design Desk. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. You can subscribe over there at YouTube, Richard Taylor TV, Facebook, Richard Taylor TV, Twitter, Richard Taylor TV, everybody. And if anything changes, any Final Cut Pro news happens, I'll be the first one to come back on here live and we can talk about it.